Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of the Improvement Season podcast. It is me, Pascal Floor as always, and on the other end, also as always, it's Steve Holt. Steve is right now full of potatoes and probably a happy dude.
I just ate 460 grams of raw. Well, they weigh the same, raw or cooked. So it's amazing. If you boil them, they don't gain or lose water. They weigh the same amount. So 460 grams of potato boiled and 250 grams of egg whites with a little bit of salt and ketchup. Bingo bango. Bob's your uncle.
Bingo bango.
I normally, if I wasn't peaking, I would have some mushrooms with that as well. And I actually boil the mushrooms with the potatoes. It's efficient.
That makes sense, yeah.
They cook at a similar pace, so...
Yeah. Here's the trick. Here's the cooking guide. Making competition for Jamie Oliver.
That was the thing when I was in the vlog that I made with Gordon about like pre-intra post. It's my post-workout meal is egg whites and potatoes and like maybe some salad of some sort or a vegetable. And he was like laughing at me as if this was a like terrible meal. And I was like, this isn't funny. This is like normal bodybuilding food, is it not? I was like, maybe for most people it's not. Yeah. Actually, I transitioned. I guess I was talking to a client about how I transitioned to this post-workout meal because in my off season, it was at times literally like a liter of chocolate milk with like a bowl of cereal or 2 bagels.
Just to get the calories in.
Yeah, just to get the calories in. That was like peak mass. And then it slowly, like I transitioned slowly into like a protein shake with like some kids cereal. And then it was like protein shake with like almond milk and then like some more whole grain based cereal. And then I slowly have moved towards egg whites, boiled potatoes. And that's as far as I've taken it so far.
Yeah.
But anyway, in more interesting news, more interesting news. On a completely unrelated note, how much better do you feel about yourself once you've had a haircut? On a
Very
scale?
good, actually. I'm always thinking when it's done, I'm always thinking like I should get that more often.
What's your schedule frequency?
Normally it's like 6 weeks, every 6 weeks, and I would love to actually get it done. And I know how spoiled this sounds, like every second week.
Every 2 weeks,
Yeah, but I'm just not going to do this simply because my barber, he is located basically on the other side of the world. At least it feels like it. And I even complained to you the last time that it took me like over, I think, in total like 3 hours to get to him and back again. And I was just like, man, I can't do this anymore. I mean, the guy that I'm with him since like 10 years already. And he's doing a fantastic job. He became a friend of mine. So there's more to it than just a haircut. And that's why I'm so hesitant in actually trying someone else. But man, the distance.
6 hours for a haircut.
No, it's 3 hours in total.
Oh, okay.
But
I was going to say,
still,
Jesus Christ.
It's still way too much. Way too much. Just for a haircut.
Considering my hairdresser, he comes round to my flat and does it. We have a chin wag. I even
asked him whether he was interested in doing something like that, but he said it would just be too stressful just to drive the entire time, especially through a city like Berlin. I mean, it's not that bad. I don't think it's as bad as it is in London. I think in London, commuting there in a car is way more stressful. But still, I can see why he's not interested in something like that.
Yeah. Fortunately, my guy, he lives in Vauxhall, so it's like super convenient for him to come round.
I think it makes very much sense in a big city like London, where you have those populated areas, and then you can actually just offer your services in just like 1 area, 2 areas, 3 areas, and that should be sufficient for most people. I think Berlin is a little bit more widespread in that kind of instance, and maybe that's why. I don't know.
I had my haircut this week. It looks like you had your haircut maybe a week ago or something.
Yeah, it's 2 weeks ago now.
2 weeks, yeah. And I'm always the same. Whenever he comes and cuts my hair, I'm like, man, I feel so much better about myself. I should get these more frequently. And he was like, yeah, when you get like a skin fade or like when you have short back and sides and it's quite short, like after a week, 2 weeks, like really you need it like every 2 weeks. He does some people's hair like every half week.
But that's probably why the beanie is out now for you as well, isn't it?
A bit colder.
Yeah.
The weather's just got cold though, hasn't it? It's just like suddenly turned.
I mean, here, I don't know how it is in London, but most of the time we're getting the weather from you like 1 to 2 days later. And here it's like freezing in the morning. Like I had 2 nights already when I got into the car when I wanted to get into the gym at around 6ish in the morning. The windows were frozen. So it is freezing. Like 0 and sub-zero degrees at the moment during the night.
Mad.
So freezing cold. And it doesn't help that you're then shaving the legs and all that kind of stuff.
It distorts it's another thing just to talk about, like the variables that influence how you look. It distorts how the physique is looking, because I had weeks, like about a month ago, I was getting crazy leg vascularity. I was like taking pictures in the lift because it was like mad. And then it gets cold. Vascularity's all gone.
No, absolutely. I'm now less vascular than I was, I don't know, 5 to 10 kilograms ago.
Yeah. And I think
just due to the heat.
Yeah.
Or the cold.
I think that's something I realized I made a big mistake in my first prep was, like, I'd just be backstage in my fucking posing trunks for like 6 hours and I'd be freezing cold. I'd have a beanie on. Whereas this time, like, I almost want to start sweating a little bit when I'm doing my pump up.
This is like the meme, you know, when they are putting like a chip to the door handle or what it is to protect the door or keep it locked. Do you know that meme?
I don't know.
Right. The security measures that some people are taking, and then they are just like putting some kind of a flip or what they are called, like in between the door and then the security lock.
Right.
And of course, it's not protecting anything at all. And it's that way. You're just putting a beanie on, but you're half naked.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. So yeah, it's just, and it was really interesting talking about jumping around peak week, which I'm in. I took some, Brett Freeman wanted some photos or a video of me when it was like stage time to get like an idea of how might you look at the time you're due on stage. And so I took that video and I was like, fuck, I look awful. I'm either way spilled or the lighting has completely thrown off my look. And it's just literally, it's the same spot in my flat, but the natural lighting, rather than coming quite strongly, like diagonally at me, it's coming like a bit further away because the sun's moved and now it's coming like side on.
But from behind you or what?
Almost behind me.
Yeah.
So there's just way less shadows. So like you can't see jack shit basically. And I was just like, man, you could easily lose your mind if you didn't realize how much lighting can make a difference. Even in my morning photos, I was like stood back from the light doing it. And then I stood forward and I was like, holy fuck. Now I'm like got down lighting on me. Yeah. Details are popping out.
I think it would be very valuable for the vast majority of competitors. I don't think it's so important for just like recreational lifters or so, to get a little bit of an understanding of how the camera works. So basically the triangle of ISO, aperture, and then shutter speed. So that you get an understanding of how these are impacted and how that also then impacts, in conjunction with the light, the quality of the picture and what it is that you're actually then seeing. Because I've seen it so often already, and of course I experienced it myself, especially with mobile devices. They don't have a huge chip, and the chip is where then, or the sensor is where the information is basically being processed. And if the sensor is very, very small and there's a low light situation and the camera isn't good at low light situation, it's kind of getting very noisy, very blurry, and that can mess with your mind big time. And then you take that picture, and especially in those mobile devices, it's not just like the sensor, but also the software that is processing that information. The Google phone is very good at that. But for example, my Samsung is doing a terrible job. And sometimes you can then just take a look at it when you just have the software open in which you take the pictures, or with which you take the pictures with. It looks good. Then you take the pictures so that you hit the shot record button, and then all of a sudden it turns into that blurry mess. This is due to the software as well. But then it can give you the impression that you just look terrible, and it can actually be quite demotivating.
Yeah. It's a tricky thing. The thing I've come to conclude is it's great to have visuals from multiple like lighting. Like it's great to have in-gym, crazy, amazing lighting. It's great to have shitty, like basic lighting, because it gives you a bit more of a fuller picture. It's like you actually mentioned, and we should talk about this, the GmbF you went to, and you were saying how different it is seeing a client in person. And I guess you get to see, like, it gives you that full picture. Whereas as an online coach, you're trying to gather data to give you a real good idea of how that person looks. Because I've had it where like someone's had flawless, like half natty lighting. And then I'm like, oh, they didn't look as good on stage as what they did in that lighting. And then other times I've seen guys who like, they legit look shitty. Like they look soft, they look fat. And then you see them on stage, you're like, okay, that was just because your setup at home was terrible. So I've just found it helpful to be like, dude, if you get any like amazing lighting, get that, but also have your consistent at home lighting so we get some sense of consistency and a bit of a well-rounded idea.
I think that with the way that we are taking pictures nowadays, and that is for the vast majority of people with a mobile device, the best thing is that you can do is getting them in a natural lighting setup, like a properly well-lit environment. Such as right now, for me, the natural lighting is just coming through the window, like not just in a small or little way, but in a proper way, midday, proper lighting, because this is how the mobile devices take the best pictures. And if you can do that, you would probably get the closest to what it may look like in reality as well. And if it's low light situation, I would just avoid it, because the mobile devices do a terrible job in that. And even just like proper cameras, they are good nowadays already, especially the mirrorless cameras. But of course, it is still technology. It's not as good as your eyes in that instance.
Yeah. I think that's really actually a good point in terms of what might be if there was one form of lighting, because I think that's basically like the video I sent you, I think yesterday. And that's my typical like midday, like post-workout. That's where I take my video and get a sense of what my physique looks like. And I'd say it looks pretty similar on stage. Stage is a bit better actually, even than that. But that gives you a good idea of, okay, it's not over-emphasizing how lean I am, but it's not under-emphasizing it either to a large degree. And you, like you said, you get a good amount of lighting on the physique, so you actually get to see it. Because I tried to I was like, I'll cheat the system and I'll use a ring light and have that blaring at me. But then you just get washed out completely. Yeah. So having the actual natural lighting, I think this is why you see quite a lot of competitors take photos outside, because people have kind of realized that. But it's not always super convenient to take it outside. Like for me,
in the middle of the winter,
on my balcony. Yeah, it's not ideal.
No, but yeah, absolutely. It's exactly this. And I think that this is one of the best lightings that you can get. Of course, it is softer though. But if you're then looking like good in that lighting, you can be quite certain that you will look good with a tan on, loaded up, and then being on stage.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know how we got here, but it was, I think, still an interesting and worthwhile discussion.
Kind of talking about being on stage, peaking and all that kind of stuff. Now that you are consuming the potatoes, and I was just asking you offline, don't laugh. It's not funny.
No, you're eating the potatoes.
Yeah. Are you tracking the potassium?
So no, I don't. I know basically my philosophy is like, for the most part, KISS. Keep it simple, stupid, during peak week. And so long as I'm not doing anything like a drastic change, which I'm not, I don't think it's super duper important. Potassium in particular, less important, becomes way less important when you're loading over multiple days. The time that electrolyte in particular becomes more important to have an idea of is when you're doing like a rapid backload. And then everything becomes more important. I know I think maybe in one of my presentations, I kind of talked about like, the less days that you're kind of peaking and the nearer to stage that you're manipulating things and you're kind of taking the stage, the more risk there is for things to go wrong. There's more variables you have to take control of, such as like the source of carbohydrate, it's somewhat important if you're loading through the week, but in reality, you just need to keep fiber down. Whereas when you're rapid backloading, you've got to get some liquid carbohydrates in there. Maybe you want to get a good ratio of fructose to glucose to upregulate like glycogen as quick as possible. Maybe you want to reduce protein and fat to increase the ability to be able to upregulate kind of glycogen replenishment. But if you're doing things like a bit more slow and gradual through the week and just slowly like filling the bucket, I like to call it, they're less important variables to worry about because the body's very good at auto-regulating them. So as long as you keep your food pretty much the same, your potassium to sodium ratio is not going to change dramatically. And all I do through the week is I probably want to have a little bit of both and maybe a little bit more of both, upregulating as my carbohydrate intake comes up, which makes sense. So I just increase my potato intake from where it was slightly up. So typically I eat 300 grams to 400 grams of potato anyway a day. And now I'm having like 400 to 600 grams. So it's not really changing very much. And then with sodium, it's just like my food volume has gone up a little bit in terms of what's on the plate. There's a little bit more food to salt. So I just salt a little bit more. I know it sounds really basic and like people are like, Steve doesn't like have this under control. But if you have your food that you're consuming and the types of food in a vacuum and you're not changing those to a large extent, your actual electrolyte intake isn't changing that much because you've already got those covered. And I tell you, so many different foods like are hard to track. Essentially, it's kind of like tracking your calories versus not. If your rate of gain is 0.5 pound on the week, in both scenarios, the person not tracking and the person tracking calories, they're both consuming the same number of calories, all things equal. So for me, it's like, well, I could track it, but I'm kind of by default tracking it because I'm keeping everything the same anyway. So I just don't know the exact number. I just know I've got a good amount.
What about the water? Because you covered now potassium, covered sodium, and sodium would have been my next question. What about water intake then? That
I do track. So I just know I'm actually inputting it. So MyFitnessPal has like a function so you can put in the liquids, it says water, but obviously everything counts. So I just put in everything that I'm consuming through the day. So I know my baseline intake is like 3.5 to 4 liters on like a low day. When I've refed, it's gone up to like 5 liters. Just naturally, I want to drink a bit more, which makes sense. And I think it's important to emphasize it as well. If you're looking to store glycogen, you need that water there because there's 2 to 3 grams of glycogen stored, water stored with every gram of glycogen, I think is the number. So yeah, I just let it. Essentially, I know my baseline is about 4 liters. I know when I'm refeeding, it goes up to about 5. So if I'm going for refeed numbers of carbs or more, I probably want to have 5+. So I don't go like out of control, but I do keep it there. And my ideology is, so long as you don't over carbohydrate, if you have excess water, you just piss it out because you're not storing that carbohydrate like extracellularly. You're storing it all in the muscle. So once it's all stored, any excess water is just pissed away. So I prefer people to drink plenty versus not drink.
And just to give the listener an idea of when it comes to spilling, because you said if you keep the carbohydrates to a reasonable extent or a reasonable intake, then you're just pissing it out. But what happens if you're then over consuming the carbohydrates?
You look kind of, it's a look that I don't often see because I don't often let myself get into a position where I risk spilling, because that's like the last thing I kind of want to happen. I think most people siding with, I'd like to see what your opinion is on this, but most people aren't lean enough to risk like pushing the bounds of fullness where they need to, like, where it's like if they spilled a little bit, it wouldn't be a problem. Most people need more condition. Most people can get leaner. So I'm always like, I'm not going to really risk getting into a spill position. And then for the people who I can push, and maybe I'll get there for myself, and maybe I'm slightly there, but people who do get quite lean and you can be a bit more aggressive with, you start at this like beginning of the week, and because you have an opportunity to slowly build up, the risk of spilling is a little bit less because the body's used to like storing and recycling glycogen a little bit better. So it isn't suddenly like, woof, you've just had all these carbs, we don't know what to do with them, we can't like use these yet because the body isn't used to kind of using all of that. So by using kind of a slow gradual approach or a kind of risk averse approach and looking at refeeds and being like, did you spill it with that amount? Let's like undershoot it if we want to be a bit careful. I don't often get into that position. So I do try and remove that risk. But if it does happen and someone looks kind of like full but a bit soft, and particularly if you look from their background, they were looking like hard and crisp and full, and then the next day they look like soft. So you're like, well, you're not suddenly depleted and flat. It's definitely like we've overdone it on carbs. I just reduced the number, and that's what we did with Arne actually, because he woke up kind of in his progressive load. I think it was 2 days out. It was just he was looking a bit soft in the upper body, so we just reduced carbs down 50 grams, and that essentially just tightened him up into the next day.
And is there anything particular you can look for in regards to finding out whether it is that you're still underloaded or you're spilled?
So some biomarkers I like for being full, because the scale can be deceptive. Because sometimes the scale comes down, but you can be fuller because you've just lost like water retention from other means, maybe stress. So that can be a challenging thing to use. I know people like to use the scale, but it's something to have as a marker, but it's not necessarily completely correct, if that makes sense. Because like I said, people will chase the scale going up to fill up, but they might just be spilling themselves because actually they are filling up the muscle glycogen, but other areas of fluid retention are dropping off, so they're actually looking better, and they're foregoing how they look for the scale number, which is never a good idea. But some biomarkers I really like: ease of getting a pump, really simple one. So I remember vividly when I did my peak with Broderick and Jared in 2017, Broderick would ask me like, so how, like, are you getting a pump when you're brushing your teeth? He'd be like, if you're like doing this or you're doing the dishes, are you getting a pump? Because we want you at the point where you have to do so little to get a pump. You're that full. So I'm kind of like, if I, and people know this, like, especially versus like a digging week where you're on low glycogen, low carbs, like getting a pump is tough. Like you might be lucky to get a pump by the end of your session. But if you're deloading or doing deloady back off style sessions where intensity isn't super high, volume isn't that high, and you're getting pretty decent pumps, especially like across the forearms, good vascularity, kind of tight skin in those areas, you kind of feel that sensation. And maybe you get that in the day, like, I don't know, just stood and you're like, oh, my forearms feel tight and they're a bit vascular.
Just to give an example here, today I was training legs. And I was doing leg extensions, and I barely saw my veins popping out. And yesterday night, or yesterday evening rather, I was very cold. So I took a hot bath. When I came out of the bathtub, I was just like, the veins were popping everywhere, right? Just that comparison alone. Like, I was training where you would expect that the veins are popping out so much more than just like a hot bathtub or just a hot bath. But it was the other way around. So if you're then looking for something like a biofeedback marker, then you want to, of course, have it the other way around, or kind of the similar way as you had it when you were stepping out of the bathtub. Like a similar sensation of like the veins popping out everywhere.
Or you could compare when you're kind of in a depleted state, how much do your veins pop out after a hot bath or shower versus when you're full, and then how much do they pop out. So they should pop out a little bit easier, quicker, and just feel like almost uncomfortable. That's kind of what you want to be going for. Yeah. So those are some of the markers I look for like fullness. So if someone's like, oh, man, or they're lacking like posing, they're like, oh, I just can't kind of contract the muscles. Like it's just hard to kind of contract them. It just, those signs give me like a sense of the muscles seem like they're not kind of glycogen loaded well. And then in the physique, you can kind of gauge, you can kind of triangulate. So triangulate the scale with the pictures, with some of those biofeedback tools, and then look at it. So yeah, it's those are the ways I like to do it.
Hi guys, Steve here. Just wanted to take a moment of your time to remind you of the Revive Stronger member site. Inside, you'll find a thriving forum, a growing exercise library, presentations, research reviews, and courses. If you want to get involved, sign up via the description.
And when you're spilled, you're still experiencing massive pumps. You're feeling hard and like hard in the sense of like you're able to contract the musculature very well, but still you are ending up looking soft.
I would imagine so. Like I said, it's actually quite rare that I experience clients getting very spilled. But I would imagine so, because like they've got, it's kind of like the muscle is full, it's just got excess there. So like I said, you might reduce carbs, or you might decide to go like do a bit more cardio that day, or doing a bit more pumping up. You can even do this on show day. Like if you're looking like, oh, like I'm feeling full and like I'm getting good pumps, but I just look a little bit soft. And if your like pee is clear and everything like that, so you're well hydrated, just like do a bit more pumping up. And some people will tighten up on stage because they start posing and they start burning through glycogen, and they start look sharper and sharper. And obviously they get a bit more of a pump, maybe if they haven't over pumped beforehand. So yeah, it's very small changes though. Because I think talking through this, people will be like, oh my God, my head is spinning. There's so many variables. There's so much going on. But it's like, if you're peeled out of your mind, if you're a little bit spilled or if you're a little bit flat, you look fucking great. So just get peeled.
Yeah.
Even for like bikini, like you hear a bikini competitor saying that, oh, I thought I looked a bit flat. And I'm like, I'm not really sure. Maybe that was the lighting, like something else. And so that's where I think it's similar to using like pump and disruption within your training, where you might think you're in a good zone, but if everything's saying you are, and you've got good pumps and disruption, you kind of know you are. So it's kind of like if your pictures are looking good and you like were like, yeah, pumps were really easy, I was like nice and vascular and felt really well hydrated, then like you can be guaranteed that you pretty did everything right. Whereas if you're like, nah, my pump sucked, but like, and I didn't feel that great, and but my pictures look good, then maybe you could have had even better pictures.
Yeah.
Possibly. Something like that.
But this is always then also being your own worst critic.
Subjective, yeah.
Looking at yourself and always thinking that you could have done better, etc., etc. I don't know.
Especially, you can't control the stage lighting or how good that photographer is.
Not only that, you can be in a worse position up on stage when the stage is actually pretty crowded, such as it was here on the GNBF or at the GNBF as well at times. Then you can be placed or positioned very much to the side where the lighting isn't the best.
Yeah.
Right? And then it can be unfortunate, like unfortunately.
And you're maybe not even best angled at the judges. So you have to like, I don't know. That's why I think sometimes having that, like, I call it like X factor on stage, where you're like, I don't know, you're really smiling and you like clearly want it. And maybe you're hitting the poses with like real grace and poise. And then maybe like, I don't know, you're doing it, your transitions are really smooth. And it's like, oh man, I can't keep my eyes off this guy. Versus someone who like, it's kind of roughly hitting the poses and they're in the background. It's like, they could have a great physique, but no one's going to see them. So they're just not being like having that X factor, which I've definitely seen men's physique in particular. I've seen some guys who are just, they got their X factor. You can see it in them. They're super confident. They've got loads of experience. They know how to hit the poses and they're like moving around and it all looks really like good and fluent. Whereas I know if I did it, I'd be like a robot. Like, who the fuck's this guy? like a frozen cheesy grin.
Do you feel ready for the UK DFBA now?
So it's funny, someone asked me that yesterday and I was like, I actually don't know if I'd ever feel ready. I don't know. It's a really tricky one. Maybe if I was like someone like Dirk, who had like shredded glutes for like 3 weeks leading into his show, like maybe. But just to be very honest, I know I can get leaner. Like I know I can. Whether or not it's worth it fully, I'll have to see. But I think I need to push to get leaner for the WNBF after this one. At least maybe the pictures will tell me differently. Maybe I'll see something that I'm not seeing currently. But I think there's a little bit more to come off. But I'm, I'll have already competed when this comes out. So that's quite nice. So anything I say here, like I think I'll do all right. If I don't get a top 5, I'll be disappointed for sure. I would actually be very disappointed not a top 5. I'll be satisfied with a top 3. Anything less than in top 3, I'm going to be a bit gutted, I think. But having said that, I'll draw it back to, it depends who turns up, really. I just feel like my physique is top 3, possibly top 3 worthy at the finals. Whether or not it is in reality,
Yeah, if you
Depends who
have
turns
like
up.
guys such as, I don't know, Kendall, he's competing at the WMBF, right? But someone like this, Kendall caliber, and then 3 times, like, could always be. Just at the GMBF, right? There was one guy, Stavros. He has been competing has been training since 7 months only. And I kid you not, I showed you the pictures, right, Steve? It was
Crazy.
Freaking insane. This was pro caliber and also pro genetics. 7 months of training, and he took the overall win at the novices. It says it all, right? It says it all. And if someone like this turns up and 2 other guys with this caliber, you can't do anything against that, right? It's just what it is then.
Did they put the novice winner into the overall for the whole show?
I don't know. The overall was the next day. And I wasn't there because it was like too late. And I was driving home already on a Saturday evening. And I didn't want to drive through the night. That's why I took off like a little bit earlier. So
sometimes you see the novice take the overall, like you're just like, fuck, you beat everyone in the open categories. It's just
that's what I mean. You never
crazy.
know who turns up, and especially for that UKDFBA show, and also then the WMBF in UK. It's basically towards the end of the season now, so you would expect that the vast majority of competitors look their very best. And it's not like shows at the beginning of August or so where people are still so far away from it, where they are expecting to maybe go to finals, go maybe even to worlds, and hence they are still at the beginning of their prep to some extent.
The thing I'm pleased with at least is I still have runway. To think though, I competed 5 weeks ago to qualify for this one, and I won that qualifier, and I competed 2 weeks before that. So already I've been in a kind of qualifiable, stage ready condition for 7 weeks. And then my last show is in, what is it now? Like 3-4 weeks. The WMBF is in 3 weeks, and then I have a show a week after.
It's kind of 2.5 though, if you really think about it. Right? It's not 3 weeks.
So like 7, so it would have been over 10 weeks that I would have had like a stage ready physique, and basically digging down most of that time. It's just it was just interesting. It's like, well, yeah, I'm just interested to see how I look under stage lighting and stage conditions and how I perform as well. I hope I improved in those 2 weeks to the BMBF show to the UKDFBA in terms of just being on stage and being present and holding poses. Yeah. So I hope I can continue that. The thing I'm more worried about is like nervousness getting the better of me and like having any like shakes, and I just want to be really poised. And but we'll see. I'm excited for it. It's all going to come very quickly because it's like the week just like tottles along, and I'm like, it's already Wednesday. I'm 2.5 days out now. Holy shit, it's all going to come very quickly. It's going to come crashing down. But yeah, where are things with you? How are things going? I know you've hit some new lows.
Yeah, surprisingly well, actually, for the amount of calories that I'm on at the moment.
Yeah, I think you shocked a few people.
Yeah, 1,300 to 1,500 calories now for the next, in total, like 4 weeks. It's low, but it is what is required at the moment. And I know that many people have like a number in their head that you think that you can't really go under. But if that's what is required, then you just need to dig and you need to go lower, whether you like it or not.
Where are your what's your output like?
Around 15 to 20,000 steps, I would say at the moment.
Decent output as well.
Yeah.
No weighted vest though.
And this is more estimated, to be honest, because I know that the way that I was walking before that was always around 10 to 12,000 steps. And I'm getting in 1 to 2 more walks in throughout the day. And they are also
so you're not tracking it?
No, they are also like 20 minutes to 30 minutes long. All right. And this is also something that you talked about basically at the beginning with the peak week. You know that you have that certain variable that is always constant. And then you can make some adjustment based off of that. It's the same when it comes to people who are not tracking the macros. When they are always eating the same way and they see that the weight isn't coming down, they just make a modification to the way that they are eating right now, without needing to know that they are subtracting X calories. And the same applies here with the step count for me as well. I know that my daily routine is always the same. I had always those the other 3 walks throughout the day, which are always the same because I'm always walking the same route here. So it's also not that it's fluctuating big time. And then I'm adding like 1 to 2 other walks. And depending on my current state, it could also be that sometimes it ends up with 3. So yeah, must be somewhere around 15 to 20,000 steps at the moment. So 13 to 1,500. No cardio. No cardio. I was once actually on a cardio machine when Katie actually went to the gym and I had time and was thinking like, yeah, I will join you. And while you're training, I will just be on a recumbent bike. But it's so freaking boring, man. I'd rather walk through the forest for like 1 or 2 hours instead of sitting on a recumbent bike or any other cardio machine, because after 10 minutes, I'm already like, oh, what is this? The time doesn't really pass.
Yeah, I can't remember the last time I did formal cardio, like as actually like I'm going to go and do this thing. Yeah. It's been so long, but I can see why some people have to do that for time efficiency. That would be the main reason, I think.
Yeah.
Or if the weather's that bad where walking in the forest is just like, I don't know, a nightmare. Yeah. So it's better to kind of get it through. And
yeah, I mean, now that it's getting
6 days a week?
Yeah,
sorry.
Exactly. Now that it's getting colder, I mean, I had a couple of walks already more so up on my treadmill here, because sometimes I wasn't really like in the mood to get out when it was super, super cold or when it was raining over the past days or so. But this is more the exception. If I can go out, then I'm going out because I way more prefer that instead of being on a treadmill or so. But the treadmill is just, a good investment. That's what it is.
I would definitely have bought a treadmill for this prep if I didn't have Ada. Yeah. Because I have to walk her anyway. Yeah. It's kind of like I have to go out anyway. But I was saying to Charlotte, like, I think it was one weekend, there was terrible weather. And I was like, fuck's sake, normally I get like close to 20,000 steps on the weekend because I'm just out and about doing stuff. And it's like, Ada wouldn't even go out in that weather. So I was like, man, I'm going to have to force myself out to go out. I'd much prefer to be on my treadmill watching some TV or doing something, just being there with Charlotte. And I was like, no, I'm going to have to go and put my jacket on and put my umbrella up.
That's the beauty about having a dog. You're basically being forced to be active. And I think that's a good thing because there was I think it was a just published study that has shown the mortality risk, that it significantly goes down with each and every 1,000 steps that you're doing additionally, up to a certain extent though, right? I don't think that at some point it will continue to be that way, but more so, in the first initial stages, the more steps you're getting in, the better it is. And thus, I think it's good. It's also something that I always encourage my people in doing when they are in an off season still, to at least get up to like 6,000 to 8,000 steps. That shouldn't really be that big of a deal. More of a challenge for US citizens rather than European citizens. But this is something that I always recommend.
For sure. I'm the same. And actually, it's interesting that had that response, because when I looked into like fruit and veg, it was very similar. Like I was interested to know, because I was doing a presentation for the members site on like kind of massing and how far can you go away from like micronutrient food, like dense foods. And it seemed up to 5 fruit and veg combined, there was like linear improvements in mortality. After 5, it was still improvements, but it started diminishing. And then after 10, it was like plateaued. Yeah. So in reality, 10 fruit and veg a day, if you want to like really boost, diminish it, it's quite a lot. Although I suppose your carbs aren't super high, but I imagine you're having a fair bit of roughage and fruit and veg at the moment.
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Yeah, but it's not crazy, to be honest, because once again, I'm very surprised myself of how easy, in relative terms, it must be said, right? Relative terms, it is to stick to that caloric deficit while still being active, while training, while taking care of the responsibilities around the job and the family, and still functioning well. Sure, the first days they were a little bit rougher to get used to, but that was nothing crazy. I've dealt with way crazier things in the past, and there are certain things that I learned for myself here, and let's just discuss it because I think it's valuable. One lesson I've learned for myself is that I always knew that I can go low in calories, but I've never tested it out for myself of how low it is that I can go for a longer period of time without actually feeling bad. And it turns out that I am able to go rather low for an extended period of time. And I also do believe that many people can do this, because what I realized is that just a while ago, I wasn't ready for it because I didn't want to. This was the only reason for me. I didn't have a good reason as to why I should go that low. And that's why I was like, oh, no, I want to still keep that low-calorie ice cream in there because I just want to. I had no good reason for it. It was just like my wants. And sometimes what you want is not what you actually need to do in order to get the job done. Or at least it just makes the job much, much harder if you insist on keeping certain things in there. So I realized for myself it was more like a mind thing, that I wanted to do something and I wasn't willing and actually getting to a certain point in order to, I don't know, lose weight faster. So once again, sum it up. Point number one, I realized how low it is that I actually can go, and I could probably even go lower. But then we are probably at some point running into the risk of some detrimental outcomes in terms of performance. But then it was more so a mind game and realizing that it was just my wants that stood in front of my needs. And that brings me to the other point, and that is over the couple of the last years, I think that the mentality around nutrition and training has changed so substantially that my training is barely impacted by the caloric deficit. In the past, I was always convinced that when I drop the calories, I will feel worse and my energy levels will be significantly down, and hence my performance will be negatively impacted as well. And that, of course, was causing kind of a negative chain reaction, which then, of course, caused me to have a detrimental outcome in regards to the performance that I was able to put into the gym. Now, this time, it's not the case. Sure, it's not as easy as it was in a gaining phase because the pumps are much, much harder to actually come by. I need to be way more focused in order to have a proper execution and not just rushing the movements. Also need to be way more concentrated to build up that mind-muscle connection. And especially certain lifts, they just suck balls now, such as SLDLs. It's very uncomfortable to do the SLDLs because they are just tiresome. They are
soul destroying.
Yeah.
2 sets. How many sets?
2 sets.
2, yeah.
And I honestly need to always put myself into the proper mindset of like, it's only 2 sets. And in the off season, it's like, what are 2 sets? Nothing really, right? So of course it is more challenging, but I think that if I were to compare me now to the athlete that I was 5 years ago, it's a completely different person now in the way that I look at training, in the way that I look at a caloric deficit, caloric surplus, etc., etc. And then to go back to the nutritional side of things, and another thing that I've learned for myself is that the overarching thing is that it's a mind game, and that was always clear, but I didn't really have the complete proof of it. But this time, I think that I've proven to myself that this is really it, because in the past, I had times where I was struggling with way more calories than I have right now. All right, and I think that everyone can probably get to the position where I'm at, because I have dealt with my fair share of a fucked up relationship with food, with eating in general. Had times where I was basically kind of having anorexic tendencies, and then also having binge-like moments, not just for a short period of time. And now here we are. And I would even say that my relationship with food is the healthiest it has ever been. And that is, of course, coming from someone who's now doing or who's doing bodybuilding. So this is a little bit controversial, but at the same time, I'm doing what is required, and I'm still flexible about it. I'm not stuffing myself. I'm not just chasing the satiety, which also I think helps with dealing with the current situation, that I'm not chasing just feeling super satiated and super full all the time. And I think that I had a good relationship to begin with food. I was eating proper portion sizes that weren't too big, and I've built those good habits over the past couple of months, leading into this push now, makes this push so much easier.
Yeah.
I know it was a lot of information, but maybe there's something that you want to touch on as well.
No, I think it's just really nice to hear about that journey. And my takeaway from that is, where in the past, almost to a point, food controlled you a little bit, you're way more in control of the food now.
Yeah.
And that's huge. And also with training and it being a mental game, completely agree. I can't even kind of fathom part of me that I'm still being able to hold on to performance that was like off-season peak performance. And there's multiple things that go into that, but mindset is definitely one of them. And having that kind of like, I'm going to hold on to this. There's no reason it should go. The muscle's being maintained. I'm doing everything right. Something I do want to ask is, how is your sleep? Because I know you had trouble, ages ago I had trouble with your sleep. And I know it's one of those things that has been a bit on and off for you.
I mean, it's nothing in comparison to 2017, for example, when I had massive insomnia. Right now, I haven't taken any kind of melatonin in a long time. Last week was the first time that I've incorporated some melatonin on nights where I needed to. Because sometimes I felt, even though that I was tired by the end of the day, I didn't feel rested. I still felt a little bit alarmed. So I went to bed and I was still awake, even though that I was tired. And this was then the moment where I took some melatonin in order to fall asleep. In the middle of the night, I'm only getting up like once, which is great. And then I get up earlier though. So my amount of sleep has decreased. There's no way of putting it differently. Here tonight was the first night in a very long time where I was actually sleeping up to the alarm. The other previous days, so the last 10 to 14 days or so, I was always getting up already like half an hour to an hour before the alarm. And that only then summed it up to around 6 or 7 hours of sleep per night, which is definitely on the low side of the spectrum for me.
I was worried you were going to say like 4 to 5 hours or like less than that. I was like, no. That sounds horrendous.
Also,
but
mood
that's not too bad.
No, it really isn't, especially if you compare it to where I have been in the off-season. In the off-season, it was always like a solid 8 hours, somewhere around there. And it's not too far off. It's kind of, half an hour to an hour difference now. And my sleep quality still feels all right. At times, good. I'm getting up, though, where I'm like, I feel already alarmed when I'm getting up out of the bed. A little bit more of a heart rate, kind of. You know that sensation where you get up and you feel fresh, but actually you are not fresh. Right? It's like, all right.
I'm not sure.
All right. But yeah, no, I think also the routine helps massively with everything that I've built over the past couple of months. Once again, I know it's super hard to grasp for the vast majority of people, maybe, when I'm just talking through it. This is one of those things where I would say, like, you have to kind of be in my own skin, or maybe followed along with the Improvement Season podcast on a weekly basis to then realize what that journey looked like. And the difference now in comparison to what it was like 2017, 2018, for example, you can't compare those two. These are complete opposites to another. I could even, and this is very, very much leaning out of the window, but I know that I could do it. I could even fast now without feeling. I mean, I will experience hunger, that's for sure, but I wouldn't be controlled by it. I wouldn't suffer or so. I don't know how else to put it. It's like you said, I am in full control over this situation. Nothing controls me at the moment. And I think that this is super powerful and yeah, just a great feeling. And I think that everyone can get there. If I can make it, I know that everyone else can.
I think it's almost like, and I've certainly been there myself, and I feel like I'm not there anymore, where you're kind of scared to be hungry, whereas it's actually, once you've been hungry and you've been hungry many times, you kind of just accept it.
Yeah.
And actually, it's almost like, if I'm hungry, if things are hard, if I'm feeling a bit lethargic, like I said this a week ago or something, like lean into that and like be comfortable with it, like kind of get comfortable with that uncomfortable sensation. And once you're there, like it's no longer that scary thing where I need to, because even if you do stuff yourself or you use these various diet hacks or whatever you do, it's a short-term sensation and then it's kind of left you with a hole. It's kind of like when you abuse caffeine too much. Like initially it feels really good and then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm crashing so hard. This is like biting me in the ass. Whereas I guess you just have a bit more of a mature and less reactive response to all these things. It just takes time. I think that's a big takeaway. It just takes time.
What I'm wondering, Steve, is, and this is something that we've touched on just a while back, is whether we have just grown older and of course gained experience with that. But I think this is a common thing that you experience or that you discover on older individuals. They've seen it all, they've experienced it all, and they are just like calm all the time, or they are massively pissed off because they hate the entire world. Can also be, right? But most of the time they are calm, especially about situations that freak you out big time. And maybe this is also applying here to some extent, that we have done this for such a long time. We have gone through extremes, and especially when it comes to getting the work done, because you're growing older. And when I compare my younger self to now, right now, if there is some kind of task that needs to be done, or I need to be responsible for something, I just do it. I don't rely that anyone else is actually taking care of it for me, or I'm not just procrastinating or waiting and hope that it's actually, I don't know, just vaporizing or so. I just do it. And maybe this also then applies to training and nutrition, where it's just like, this is the situation, I just do it. All right. I don't know, what do you think?
The quote that comes to mind is experience cures anxiety. And for sure, like I even think to things like, I don't know, the next time there's somewhat of a pandemic, we're going to be those old people that are like, like I've been there before, like we'll find a vaccine or whatever, like it won't be as scary. Or like when the gym, even you can say when the gym shut the second time, it wasn't like it was crushing, but it wasn't as big of a like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do in this situation? This is awful. It's like, well, I've just been through it and get through it again. And it's the same with like every single time you diet, you get better and better. Each contest prep gets better every time you get like, and that's why I think as competitors, almost your stage weight doesn't change because you get better at pushing yourself to get a little bit deeper, because there's always more body fat to come off because otherwise you die.
Yeah.
There's always a little bit more somewhere to scrape away. Whether or not it will look good on your physique is another question, but there's always a little bit more to come off. So yeah, I think at least it's for though there were probably a lot of people who can resonate with a lot of things that you said and that we've said. And there's probably people who are a bit earlier in their journey, a lot of people a bit earlier in their journey who will experience it. And I think that's part of it. You can't expect to be at someone's like at the level Pascal is now where he can push to that low level, because there's definitely people that look at that number and they're just like, I can't deal with that low of calories. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I had even an athlete who then said like, man, you're on 13 to 1500 calories. I feel like I'm doing something wrong then. And that shouldn't be the case. I mean, it took me a long time to actually be in a position like this. Once again, turn back like a couple of years now, especially I always bring up 2017 to 2018, but my relationship with food before that wasn't the greatest either, which probably then led to that outcome where I then binged for like, I would even say like 6 months, but on a nearly bi-daily basis. And I know that, once again, it took me a long time to get there, but I think that if I can do this, man, other people can do it as well. I've done nothing special. I haven't even done, or I haven't even had a coach by my side or so. And the athletes that I'm working with who are going through those struggles of like, I don't know, binges, which are very common actually, they are the ones where I'm just like saying, are you expecting to eat like this for the rest of your life? I don't think so, right? We have so many years, and even if it takes you years in fixing that, you're not expecting to live like this for the rest of your life, are you? I don't know. I think that, once again, I had no one by my side in that instance. Yes, you were by my side, Steve, but I had not a coach who specifically targeted that to overcome that. And I also didn't really share too much with you either about it because I felt ashamed, felt embarrassed in that situation. But once again, if I can do it, everyone else can as well. And it just takes time and kind of effort. And this is most of the time what people aren't willing to put in, the time and effort. And I'm not saying like, look at me, I'm superior because I put in the time and effort. No, I for me, it was important. And that's why I did put in the time and effort.
Yeah, I think that's well said. And I just want to bring it back slightly. What's your rate of loss? Because it's all relative, of course.
Yeah. So,
what do you think your rate of loss generally should be, at least based off the numbers?
I wanted to aim for at least around 1% of body weight loss for the next 4 weeks then, or for those 4 weeks
so quite
on
aggressive.
average. Yeah, very, very aggressive. And even if that means that my performance is coming down just slightly. This was something that I was willing to take.
Trade-off.
Yeah. And that is something that you always have to be aware of, right? If you are willing to go there and willing to push in order to get a specific outcome, then you need to also be aware of the potential consequences. Right now, I don't experience those potential consequences as of yet, such as elevated hunger, elevated mood swings, I don't know, lethargy, all these kind of things, and then also a drop in performance. All these things aren't really present at the moment, which is cool. I weighed in 2 times in a row, so on Monday and on Tuesday at 73.3, which was a drop of over nearly a kilogram in just a matter of a night, for example.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, and now I'm hovering in the mid 73s. And just like 2 weeks ago, I was still in the 75s. So,
and you can see it, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Things are getting very quickly, very much sharper, which is very cool to see and very motivating. But at the same time, it's like we discussed the last time. You always discover that you carry way more fat than you actually thought you do.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think it's a fallacy we all kind of fall into because we always want to be bigger than we are. But then when you do reflect upon, bring up Brett Freeman again, I can't remember what his stage weight was, but I think it was in the 140s, for example. Or like Alberto Nunez, I think it's like 160 and he's 5'9". Like they look much heavier than they are. Actually, my dad was shocked at how light I was. He was like, fuck off, you're that light. I was like, no, I'm that light. Like,
I'm just thinking now, and this is not worth it even considering that or having those thoughts. I just wish that I was in that mindset a couple of months back. That I had the mental capacity of pushing earlier so that I could actually compete at all of those shows, for example. But to be fair and being very, very objective about it, I wasn't in the right mindset And also, I was not, physically speaking, in the proper situation because of the sicknesses I've experienced during that time. But you always have those thoughts. What if I would have been in a bed? But the thing is, now I know that I can push and I can probably also get to a level of leanness when my mindset is there quite comfortably. And then, of course, if you really want to create something and to bring something, I don't know, stunning out of you, then of course it will probably require going up to the next level, which is something that I haven't yet done.
Yeah, I think it's, I've heard Cliff say it multiple times, like there is not a perfect prep. You can plan and you can have a blueprint, you think everything's right. It doesn't always work out perfectly. So I think things are going pretty well considering.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I guess on that note, we've basically been an hour blabbing about ourselves, but I think people enjoy these. Maybe we gather some questions at some point, but I think people are enjoying just hearing us have a chin wag.
For the time of the prep, right? It's just about the prep, and then afterwards, when we have nothing really to talk about because the off season is so boring.
Post-show recovery. Yeah, true. Off season.
Right.
Cool.
Then. Cool.
Do we have anything? Nothing.
No.
Just
not
like,
really.
subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you like our channel, share it with your friends. We appreciate it, and we'll catch you very soon.
Cheers, guys.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge, and I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.